What up, everyone? Welcome back to Reign of Horror, and I am your host, Nerd Cosa Nostra. Hope everyone is doing well tonight, depending upon what time you are listening and watching. Today is Thursday, October 31st, so we all know what today is. Happy Halloween. Hope everyone has something fun planned tonight. If not tonight, hopefully you have something fun planned for tomorrow or the upcoming weekend. I know it's kind of odd having Halloween fall, whether it's during the middle of the week or, kind of in the middle of a work week. Obviously, it's much more convenient when it falls on a Friday or a Saturday. That way you can have the whole night to kind of plan something out, whether it's taking your kids trick-or-treating or just getting together with family and friends and having a Halloween party, or even going to a Halloween party. If you happen to partake in the Halloween festivities. So if you are, be safe out there, but have a good time, obviously. So today, there's been a lot of I feel like there's been a lot of news today. We definitely got some updates on I think what I find to be a film that many of us have been anticipating and waiting for, is the Nosferatu film that's coming out in December. So we did get a further look into some of that content. We got some character posters that we're going to look at tonight. We also got an update on the TV series that's going to be based off of the film It, which I'm pretty excited about. Hopefully it turns out to be everything we expect. I enjoyed the original film, and I've definitely enjoyed the two remakes that we've gotten thus far. I've mentioned this the other day. It's not often we see some of these films turn into TV series. We recently covered Chucky, that TV series, but that one's been recently canceled. But obviously we're getting an It TV series as a result of the films. So again, we don't typically see this that often. I know there's been some back and forth around Camp Crystal Lake, which we've briefly touched on here on the show. We haven't gotten into the details of that show because, again, there's not much to know about it, and it was happening, then it was canceled, now it's happening. So obviously once something is a bit more concrete and we know it's moving forward, then we will definitely be covering that. And I am looking forward to seeing that. I am hoping it lives up to, I think, a lot of our expectations when it comes to that franchise of Friday the 13th, Jason Voorhees. But again, we don't know much about the show as far as how it's gonna play out, what the story's gonna be, how many episodes. Which, side note, I wouldn't be surprised if it's only 8 episodes. If you've heard me on any previous shows or on this channel, my issues when it comes to the 8 episode format. I just feel that's just not that. I just feel that's not enough. I think we need more than 8 episodes for a TV series, especially if you're keeping the episodes, anywhere between 42 and 48 minutes. If you're going to push them to maybe an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes, then yeah, I can see how you can get away with an 8 episode series, because you're obviously getting roughly 10 or maybe even 11 episodes runtime in that. But if you're going to run 8 episodes at 42 minutes, 48 minutes a piece, I just don't think that's enough to tell a good round story. Because otherwise, how many shows have we seen where by the time you get to episode 4, whether it's episode 3 or 4, it's a filler episode, and that doesn't even make sense to me there. Why do you feel you need a filler episode when you already only have 8 with a limited runtime? You would want to utilize as much of what you have as possible to tell a great story. So it's never made sense to me. Still doesn't make sense to me. It never will. So we're gonna look. So we'll cover off on a little bit on the new It TV series that's coming out, and hopefully again we'll get some updates here in the future around Camp Crystal Lake. because again, like I said, I'm looking forward to that one. And you know, as it be, it's like I said, it's Halloween. So what would today's show of all shows be without discussing some Halloween movie news on the franchise? So if you didn't know, you will. I mean, if you're listening, you will know. Jamie Lee Curtis came out with some sort of. It's being reported as a cryptic message around her involvement with the Halloween franchise and her involvement with the Laurie Strode character. We all know, based on her comments from when the last film ended from the new trilogy, she was pretty much saying, "Yep, I'm done. It's been a great run. I'm leaving the Laurie Strode character behind now, and time to close the book, so to speak." Right? So, and I think we were all very accepting of that. She had been in the role since '78. I mean, she hasn't been in. Don't get me wrong. She hasn't been in every single Halloween film in the overall franchise, but she's been in the vast majority of them, and the vast majority of them, the Laurie Strode character has played a pivotal role as far as being the one that Michael Myers is always trying to catch and retire, so to speak. So, while at the end of the last trilogy, I was, hey, great, you're hanging it up, you're gonna retire from the character, and maybe now any future Halloween films, if we happen to get more in the future, will hopefully somehow be based on a new story, a new character. I think the Laurie Strode thing has been played. We know it very well. And we know it across multiple timelines, and we covered that in the specific Halloween episode where we went through at a high level the timelines for this franchise, as well as the various Michael Myers masks. So if you haven't already seen that, check it out. It's uploaded on the channel. But we'll cover off on what she said. You know, what she said in this interview, and what some people are wondering, does this leave the door open for her to come back and this character to come back again? I hope not. I'm ready for us to start shifting the franchise in a new direction while still utilizing the Michael Myers character. And then we'll have a little fun. We'll go through the Halloween franchise. I came across something that was ranking all the Halloween movies from what the author believes was the worst to the best. So we'll see. We'll run through them. We're not going to cover, specifically which each film's about in great detail. I think most of us will know what each film is about, but again, I'll just give a very high summary, and we'll see if we agree. Do we agree with this ranking? I took a sneak peek at it, and I will say I am so far not in full agreement with the ranking, but I think it's a very subjective ranking when you think about any movie franchise. Doesn't matter if it's horror or not horror. Everyone's gonna have their own personal favorites, right? And when it comes to the Halloween franchise, again, I'm very biased. It's my favorite franchise when it comes to horror. However, that doesn't mean I necessarily like every single sequel or film in the franchise. I definitely have my dislikes, and I have some that I rarely ever watch, just because, again, I don't necessarily like them. Doesn't mean I won't watch them here and there, but if I'm reaching for a Halloween film, you'll know which ones I'm not going to reach for. Side note, the Rob Zombie films. Those two I'm not reaching for directly to watch anytime soon. Then we had a recent film come up as far as it's on its 10-year anniversary, and then we'll close it out with a little snippet I saw, which I thought it's a potential episode that we've never seen before, related to Scream and a TV series, which I think would have played out nicely for like a Halloween episode. Maybe it's the crossover we always needed or should have gotten. So, a little tidbit there, but we'll get to that towards the end of the episode. So, with that said, we're going to move right into our first topic, and that being the Nosferatu Cast Lurks in the Shadow of Evil and new character posters. So if you have not seen these posters, again, these just came out today. So we'll just briefly run through some of this content real quick, and then we'll just jump right into what these posters look like. So the human cast of Robert Eggers' upcoming remake of Nosferatu are overshadowed by evil and new character posters for the film. However, Count Orlok himself remains under wraps for now. Fans might have to wait until the film's release this Christmas Day to see the dreaded vampire's presumably horrific visage. The new posters show off 5 of the film's human characters with the upper halves of their faces dramatically cloaked in shadow. So, I mean, and then this just goes on to say, you know, which characters, who they're playing. So let's just jump right into the posters. So, I mean, here we have the first one here. I mean, I don't know. I think these look this looks absolutely great. For me, it fits the tone of the film. I love the font that's being used for Nosferatu, the title of the film. Now, if it were me, obviously I would have removed like this top font here. I mean, I understand. I get it. These are movie posters for advertising for the film, but you know, if I was wanting these personally, I mean, I would definitely prefer to have like this font here in the top left-hand corner removed, maybe, and obviously keep the character name, but then, you know, this other stuff like this Christmas and all these various logos just to clean it up, and maybe even not have the character name, just have the title of the film and then the character itself. But I love the fact of like how you can see the eyes, how they have these little white dots so you know where the eyes are at. I just think that looks great. So let's scroll down. I think actually we go back up. I think we have to skip through over. So sorry. So they kind of kept the same theme here. Again, different character, but again with the eyes. It's the same look and feel on all these posters. But yeah, they just look so eerie and very fitting for the film. I mean, I think if you had all of these somehow, signed and framed, and again, if you're that big of a fan, and then if you had like a little horror room or a little like entertainment room, film room to have some of these put up in, I think these would look absolutely amazing. I think of all of them, I would have to say this one is probably my favorite, this one here, and then a very close will be the William Dafoe one. But overall, this one's definitely got to be my favorite. So again, new posters coming out for the film. I think we've only seen a brief teaser trailer for the film. We're about a month and a half out, about a month and 3/4 out before the film drops on Christmas Day. So I would imagine we will get a full trailer probably I would imagine the next couple weeks, because they're starting to really ramp up the content and the news information on this film. Like I said, we got the teaser a couple weeks ago. Now we're getting these new character posters. So again, I would imagine probably the next couple weeks we'll probably get that first trailer. At least I'm hoping we're going to get that first trailer full, because again, I can only remember the teaser coming out. So I'm definitely looking forward to this film. Obviously, I'm sure a lot of us have seen the original film, but this one has definitely got me hooked thus far, based on what we've seen. So very excited to see this film, and I feel it's gonna be one of those films that you're gonna want to see on at the cinema on the big screen. Well, I think it would still have potentially the same level of impact if you're watching it at home. If you have a good size setup, but I think for horror films like this, we got to get out there and show the support, show them the love, so that way we get more of them. Not necessarily always having to be a remake, but just more horror films out there in the cinema so we can enjoy them, versus, you know, them coming straight to a streaming service like Shudder or straight to a physical release or digital, right? I think the more support we get out there for these types of films, the better. So, all right, so let's move on to that was pretty much the news for Nosferatu that came out. I think it was today, late yesterday. Today, with a new character poster. So more to come on this one as we get closer to the film's release. All right, so jumping to the next topic. as I mentioned at the beginning of the show. So we have It, Welcome to Derry. Images offer the first look at upcoming Stephen King series. The It prequel series, It, Welcome to Derry. It is coming to HBO and Max in 2025, and the batch of first look images have arrived online. So that's what we're going to be taking a quick look at. The upcoming TV series, It, Welcome to Derry, which will serve as a prequel to Warner Brothers' two-part adaptation of the classic Stephen King film. Let me get rid of this here real quick. Stephen King novel, It. Pick up a copy here. It's just a link to, if you want. And again, I'll provide the link of this article here, so you can click here if you want to get a copy of that. Was originally meant to be for the Max streaming service, but recently learned that it will be airing on HBO as well. The show went into production in Port Hope, Ontario at the end of last year, aiming for a 2025 premiere, and wrapped in August after 237 shooting days. Now a batch of first look images have made their way online, and you can check them out in this article. So let's just take a quick scroll down. This briefly touches on, the Friday the 13th Crystal Lake series I was talking about earlier. We can just take a brief look at this quote here from Stephen King. Had this to say about the series: I'm excited that the story of Derry, Maine's most haunted city, is continuing, and I'm glad Andy Muschietti is going to be overseeing the frightening festivities along with a brain trust, including his talented sister Barbara. Red balloons all around. The Muschietis added, as teenagers, we took turns reading chapters of Stephen King's It until the thick paperback fell to pieces. It is an epic story that contains multitudes far beyond what we could explore in our It movies. We can't wait to share the depths of Steve's novel in all its heart, humor, humanity, and horror. And then we get a roundabout breakdown of the cast. But here are some of the first images. So so it looks like we obviously have someone here. Looks military. We see Pennywise image. We see the Pennywise name here in the background, and then a picture of what I would assume is Pennywise, but obviously a very different look for him on this like faded background here. Scroll down a little bit more. I'm not sure. Is this the same? Looks like that's a different actor here in this one. So it could not too sure. I mean, there's no descriptions for these images, so not too sure what this could be pertaining to. And obviously we're getting looks like these four could be in a movie theater. Obviously they could be seeing the character Pennywise or something to do with them based on their expressions, especially the one here to the left. Seems a bit taken aback, a bit surprised, while the little girl is just sitting there like she's like not even fazed one bit about what she's saying. Like she doesn't even, like it's just another afternoon at the cinema. No big deal. So we keep scrolling down. If we see here, we can tell. I mean, this looks obviously could be based on the car, based on the clothing, could be 50s, 60s time period. Again, there was nothing up in this article that was indicating that, and I haven't seen anything indicating the time period, unless something I've overlooked. But just based again on the clothing and the car in the background, I would anticipate 50s, 60s. And even this next picture, the decor, just how the kitchen chairs, the lamp in the background, again some of this furniture looks very 50s, 60s look. Keep scrolling down. Another individual from the military. So it's got to be probably the 60s then, because we got JFK in the back. I'd imagine this was his time as president, so this would have been early 60s then, which would fit, as I mentioned, the clothing, the cars, and again, more pictures of military individuals, and I think that was it. So again, there were no descriptions for these images, but I mean, look at it this way. I'm just glad we're starting to see some things come out for the show. And we did, I'm not sure if this article has the, it doesn't. So they also released the official logo for the new series. So I will make sure to include that link in the description as well if you want to check out the official logo. But it's very on par for as far as like what the title looks and font colors and everything for the film. So again, very, very on par with that. So again, Not much detail as to what's happening in these pictures, but again, it's just nice to see something starting to come out, especially if this is coming next year. But we don't have a date. We just know it's going to be premiering in 2025. So I would hope we could get this somewhat early next year, maybe by mid next year, especially if shooting's already done and we're starting to ramp up the promotions and advertising for it. I can't imagine this would be something that they would wait until towards the end of next year to release. You would think they'd want to get this out there as soon as possible. You think Max or HBO would want to get it out there as soon as possible, just from a streaming, getting customers onto their platform to watch it, right? So yeah, but yeah, when this show comes out, though, we will be watching it, that's for sure, and we'll be doing a review on it. We might, depending upon timing, like what day the show will air, we might even do watch parties for them. So thus far, from what I've experienced with Max, they don't typically drop an entire season. It's usually a weekly episode drop. So we would then look to do like a weekly review of each episode as they air. So more to come on this. All right, so let's get to the next topic. So this is what I was mentioning as far as kind of a tease for the Halloween franchise. So Jamie Lee Curtis cryptically teases Halloween future after Laurie Strode's final film, quote, "Never Say Never." The Oscar-winning actress and producer of an upcoming Susan Powter documentary tells EW she previously hung up playing Laurie. So let's scroll down here. Let's see. The last and yet most fitting thing you'd expect to receive on Halloween is a cold call from OG final girl Jamie Lee Curtis. But moments after Entertainment Weekly sent a request to the Starz team for more information on the Oscar-winning actress's involvement in producing filmmaker Zebra Newman's upcoming documentary about 90s fitness icon Susan Powter, much like Laurie Strode herself, the Halloween franchise star took matters into her own hands. So I mean, just a little bit back and forth here, but I want to get to the quote, which is right down here. "I have hung up my bell bottoms and my pale blue button-down shirt, and I have relinquished Laurie to the ages with a warm aloha and a thanks for all the years and memories," Curtis tells EW when asked if she's truly done with the Halloween movie series for good after 2022's Halloween Ends. Billed as the final installment in director David Gordon Green's 3-film revival of the classic series, which began with 2018's Halloween, dealt what felt like a deadly permanent blow to any potential that the masked serial killer Michael Myers could return for more mayhem. So let's pause there for a second before we move on to... Well, actually, let's just finish up the quote. "And yet," Curtis continues, if I've learned anything in my 65 years on the planet, it's never say never. Goodbye." End quote. And then she promptly hung up without another word. The horror icon has played Laurie Strode, Myers' sister, 7 times throughout her career, including in her breakout role in the first Halloween film in 1978. And this goes on to talk about the Rob Zombie film, talks about, just some of the box office results, and, that's pretty much where it ends. But let's go back up to this point here, where it mentions, billed as the final installment in director David Gordon Green's 3-film revival of the classic series, which began with 2018's Halloween, dealt what felt like a deadly permanent blow to any potential that the masked serial killer Michael Myers could return for more mayhem. So I'm not sure if this is implying that based on the results of the films that we wouldn't, and I say results mean like box office results of this 3-film trilogy that I don't want to call it a reboot, but new timeline to the Halloween franchise. I'm not sure if we're saying, hey, the box office results weren't that great, so we may not see another Michael Myers or another Halloween film for, permanently or for quite some time. Or if this meant just as it relates to that trilogy, and then, something else could be brewing. But since the last film in that trilogy was released, Halloween, which was Halloween Ends, we haven't, it's been a little over 2 years now, about 2 years since that film came out. There hasn't been any Halloween news, nothing to do with the franchise, nothing to do with the character, whether that's film or TV. So it's very possible very possible that the franchise might be in hibernation, so to speak, for a bit. And again, Halloween is my favorite franchise. Michael Myers is my favorite horror villain. Do I think it would serve the franchise justice to maybe take a break? Probably. Maybe it's time for, again, some of these OG franchises to take a break. We haven't seen, again, outside of Crystal Lake or Camp Crystal Lake, however they're going to phrase or call the TV series. Outside of that, we haven't seen a recent Friday the 13th film. We haven't seen anything on A Nightmare on Elm Street as far as, we got the attempted remake reboot of that franchise, which didn't land all that great with fans, with the hardcore fans especially. We are still getting some of this. We are still getting Scream films, but there was a period of time where we weren't getting those, and they have now started to make a comeback. But I think with Scream though, what Scream has done has been able to, I feel, change with the times. That franchise has evolved nicely. I don't think the other films, maybe it could be because of how much older they are when you think about the Scream franchise. Maybe that's part of it, because if you think about Halloween starting in 1978, here it is 2024. Again, maybe it's time that these franchises, again, go into hibernation for a bit, 5, 6, 7 years, and then come out and give the rest of the genre some time to breathe and course correct on some new stuff that we've seen thus far this year. We've seen some new things come out, not all successful, but some I feel have been successful for the genre, have given the horror genre some attention. So again, as much as I love the franchise, as much as I love the character Michael Myers, again, I'd be okay with the fact that if they said, hey, let's take a break and we'll come back to this franchise, in a few years when it makes sense, or longer. It may not make sense to even continue it. They may just say, hey, maybe it's just time to retire it altogether. I highly doubt that, because I think the core characters like Michael Myers, Jason, Freddy, Leatherface, Pinhead, I think a lot of these OG characters are always going to be moneymakers. It's just telling a decent, I think for these characters, tell a decent story. It's not going to be, Oscar-worthy performances. We know that, but at least tell something great or good. If you keep giving us mediocre stories and just an hour and 20 minutes or an hour and 30 minutes of just, something that doesn't even make sense and I can hardly pay attention to, then yeah, don't bother. You might as well just not even make the film, in my opinion. So we'll see. Again, for the character Laurie Strode, again, I'm okay with this character kind of going off into the sunset. I'm okay not seeing this character again. It's been long enough. Let's start shifting it. And I feel the same way for the Scream franchise. For Sidney Prescott, right? Neve Campbell's character. I don't necessarily feel, she's coming back for the next one. I think it's even time for that franchise to move away from some of the core, but there's 3 core characters now still remaining from the original that have somehow come across and been in almost all. So we've got the 7th film coming, I think, and they've somehow shown up in almost every film. At some point, let's move on. It's okay not to keep holding on to the original characters or the original storyline across the entire franchise. So yeah, I'm good with Laurie Strode. I'm good with Jamie Lee Curtis kind of stepping aside. Let's come at this with something new or something fresh. So we will see. Or we won't see, like I said, or they'll just park it for a bit. So I would be okay with either one. So before we get into so the last topic, this is just kind of a fun one. Like I said, it's going to be a pretty short show tonight, just because I'm sure everyone has plans, being Halloween night and all. So this is just one of those things. Again, as a fan of the Halloween franchise, again, my favorite one. I came across this from about a week ago, every Halloween movie ranked from the 1978 original to Halloween Ends. From gruesome kills and compelling character arcs to screwy narrative twists, here's EW's ultimate ranking of the Halloween franchise. So again, this is gonna. I'm sure this is gonna be very subjective. I can't imagine. I took a peek at this, and I highly doubt we're gonna agree on. I'm gonna agree with the author's ranking. I highly doubt you as the viewer are gonna even agree with my ranking. Again, I think when it comes to ranking movies, it's very subjective, based on personal preference, based on what you like and don't like. So, but if we look at this, but yeah, it's hard to believe that there's 13 films across this franchise. But that seems pretty on par for. We look at how many films there are across the other ones. Even like Saw, I think it's hitting. Well, we're getting what, number 11 or 12 next year, which that, my opinion. Right, wrong, or indifferent, I think the Saw franchise should have ended at, I think, maybe number 3 or 4. I don't think that one needed to continue past that. It just feels very repetitive from a story perspective. And the fact that you had to bring back one of your core characters that you killed off because the franchise seems to be faltering is a telltale sign that maybe it's time for the Saw franchise to go away. And not just go away for a while. I think the Saw franchise has run its course. They rode the wave for as long as they could, and now it's maybe it's just time to be done with it. So we'll go through these real quickly here. So again, they're ranking them from what they believe to be the least to the greatest. So at number 13, they have Halloween: The Curse of Michael Myers. So already, I'm at a disagreement already. I don't necessarily think that Halloween, and this would be Halloween, if you're going by numerical number, this would be Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. I don't, again, think this is the worst one by any means. Now, this is where we got into the whole Thorn mythology of the Michael Myers character, the whole witchcraft and how he has his powers and things of that nature. Now, I don't necessarily think that was probably the best way to take the story at the time, but that's what they did. And again, I don't think it's necessarily the worst film. So I would not agree with this being at number 13. So let's move on. And so these little descriptions here is just, again, kind of what I just covered, like what the movie is, like what part it is, and kind of what's transpired in the film. But I'm not gonna go through all that. Again, I'll provide the link of the article in the description if you want to read through some of these details. Now, number 12, Halloween Resurrection. This is pretty much where it should be. Maybe at number 11. I would maybe put it at number 11 only because I would have Rob Zombie's films, his Halloween 1 and 2 films at 12 and 13. So I'm just going to put that out there right now that I would bump this to 11, and wherever in this list when we get there we come across Rob Zombie's films, they're going, actually scratch that. I would put Halloween Resurrection at number 10. I would put Rob Zombie's films at 11 and 12, and then Halloween 3, that anthology timeline they attempted, at number 13. Halloween 3 is by far my least favorite. I think I've watched that maybe a few times, and every time I've watched it, I've disliked it more and more. And I've immediately I haven't gone back to it in years after giving it as many chances as I possibly could. So that's how I would rank that. So when we come across those, that's where I'm ranking them. Halloween Kills, obviously based on what I just said, this would definitely be moved up. I don't agree with this being number 11. I definitely liked the beginning of this film, especially when you have Michael in the house that's burning down. He makes his way out, retiring some of the rescuer. Well, at least one rescuer that fell through the floor while he was hiding behind that trapdoor, and then made his way out of the house. And as you kind of see him coming through the smoke in the burning house, and he takes on the rest of the rescuers. I thought that was a great beginning to the film. So Halloween Kills, I don't think it's enough love. It's not nearly as bad as some of the other entries in the franchise. I don't think it deserves to be at number 11 on this list. So I would definitely have bumped that one up. Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. If I mean, this is only getting bumped up because we moved the other ones, some of the other ones further down this list that we know of further back. So this one obviously would get bumped up a little bit, but I really, while this had some good moments in it, some good kills in it, I just think this one could have been so much better than it was. I mean, Halloween 4 and 5 is playing on the story of Jamie Lloyd, which was played by Danielle Harris. And in this timeline, which is the sequel timeline, Jamie Lloyd is presented to us as Laurie Strode's daughter, but Laurie Strode, the character, or Jamie Lee Curtis, wasn't in 4 or 5. So 4 and 5 is almost like a continuation on the impacts of Michael Myers to Jamie's character, and Michael Myers trying to retire Jamie. So this would bump up because we're moving others further back in the list, but where it lands in the middle is pretty on point for me. The next one being Halloween 4 again. As I just mentioned, so another quick thing is, I mean, look at this mask. And look at this mask. That's Halloween 4, and where Halloween 4 ends, where the sheriff's department and some of the townsfolk are using their weapons against Michael Myers, and he falls into this well. That's how part 4. That's the last we see of Michael Myers in part 4. It's not how it ends. We see Jamie Lloyd back at the house, but then attacking her stepmother with a pair of scissors, kind of like what Michael did as a child in the very beginning of the 78 film. Because there's a point where Jamie picks up or touches Michael's hand, and they try to give this perception that he's like transferring some sort of power or some sort of connection between the two, which is portrayed even further in part 5. But look at this mask. I mean, look at that mask, and then look how his mask looks in part 5. Not even close to the same thing. And we covered this in the Halloween episode, going through all the masks through each sequel, and these are just that is just one of the worst masks of all 13 films. It's just absolutely horrible. But again, Halloween 4 I'm going to keep next to Halloween 5, and it's going to fall right within the middle. Again, it's not the worst, but it's definitely not the best. But again, thinking 1988, what we got would have been pretty close to what I would have expected in 1988 for a horror film, and it being part 4. So not much surprise there. But again, it doesn't move very far from number 9 though. Maybe just a few spots. Halloween Ends. I would move this one back. This would not be number 8 for me. So Halloween Ends, while it had its bright moments, and again, this was, I think, from what I saw, one of the least liked of the new trilogy. And my opinion, the reason why it was so misliked was because Michael seemed more vulnerable in this one. Obviously, he's in this new trilogy, he's portrayed to be much older, right? Because 40 years have now passed since the 78 film, and the 78 film is the foundational part that then leads into this new trilogy from a timeline perspective. So he's obviously much older, and we see that in the first part of this trilogy, when he's in the hospital and he doesn't have his mask on. You see he's much older, almost elderly. So rightfully so. But how Halloween Ends plays out, he's not the focus. They try to put the focus onto another character who's working with Michael Myers, who's helping Michael Myers, and there's even a point where this character has to hold down a house to hold somebody down for Michael to retire them. And again, it's just not what we come to expect from the character. Again, I understand what they are trying to do with the story. I understand the direction they were trying to going, but I just didn't care for it. So this one would move back a bit for me. Again, based on how we've shifted some of the films that we haven't gotten to on this list, and then 4 and 5 being kind of in the middle. So moving on. Halloween 2, 2009. So this would be the Rob Zombie Halloween 2. 13 films in this franchise. This is easily not either going to be number 12 or 13. I don't care which one it's in, as long as it's at the bottom of the list. And some of you could be like, you have no idea what you're talking about. Some people love the Rob Zombie films, and don't get me wrong, I don't dislike Rob Zombie. I don't dislike his films. It's his portrayal of the Halloween franchise, his portrayal of Halloween just wasn't for me. Again, I've watched both films plenty of times. They're not the ones I'd reach out to, and I will here and there watch them just because if it's been a while since I have, I'll still put them on as more background noise than anything else. But again, if I'm thinking I'm going to go watch a movie from the Halloween franchise, I'm not reaching for one of Rob Zombie's films. Those are not the first two, not even the second or third options I'm reaching for. I will easily watch from the sequel timeline 4, 5, or 6. No problem. I'll even watch Resurrection before I watch one of these. The only Halloween film in the franchise I wouldn't reach for ahead of these two would be Halloween 3, because Halloween 3 would definitely be at the bottom. So really, Rob Zombies would be 11 and 12, and Halloween 3 would be 13. So that's the only one that I would not pick. Again, but that's my personal preference. So moving down, Halloween H2O or H20, I find this one entertaining. I think for what it was and what we got in 1998. As a again, this was the H2O timeline. So where this one goes is from Halloween 1 and I believe Halloween 1 and 2, then goes into H2O and then into Resurrection. So that's the H2O timeline. And this is the only time we see Josh Hartnett's character, which is her son. Unlike the sequel timeline where Jamie Lloyd's the daughter, but then there's no mention of across those timelines of the other sibling. So in the sequel timeline, there's no mention of Josh Hartnett's character, and in the H2O timeline, there's no mention of Jamie Lloyd, the daughter character. So Danielle Hoops, played by Danielle Harris. So it's as if, she's got two separate timelines, two different ways how her life turned out. So, and this being the only Halloween film that didn't take place in Haddonfield, this one was supposedly took place somewhere in California at a private school. So, I would bump this one up. Again, this one would be naturally bumped up because we were moving other ones further to the back. I quite enjoy this film. It had some good jump scares in it, especially the point when in the cupboard when they go to turn the light on and one of the students has a light inside them and they're kind of just dangling there. So I thought, if you've never seen that part, it has a good jump scare to it when you first see it. So let's jump down. Halloween 2007. This is the first Rob Zombie film. It's number 11. And I've already talked about both of this film and the one above, my feelings on the Rob Zombie films. So this would definitely not be number 5 for me. Definitely back of the list for me. So not even going to spend much time on this one. And even number 4, how this one, again, I think the list is very subjective, but Halloween 3 would definitely not be my top 5, would not be number 4 on my list. So, and I think as we've gone through this list, I've expressed my feelings on this one. So not even gonna waste any time on that one. It's number 13, no question for me. Halloween 2018. So this would be again part of the new trilogy, the H40 timeline. Would I leave this here? I would be okay leaving this one at number 3. I find it much more enjoyable than Halloween 4, 5, or 6 from the sequel timeline. It's obviously ahead of Resurrection. It barely beats out H2O. It easily beats out both Rob Zombies and Halloween 3. So this is pretty much where it's going to land. I could switch this one out, whether it's number third or fourth place or fifth place for H2O. But it's pretty much up there at the top for me. Definitely would be in the top 5. But I think where the top 2 round out, we have a Halloween 2, the original Halloween 2 from 1981, and then just quickly, I'll just scroll to it. We have Halloween 1978, the original film. Absolutely agree with both of these. absolutely agree with Halloween 78 being number one and Halloween 2 81 being number two. So I've mentioned on other shows, on this show, these are by far my two favorite in the franchise, and I've expressed this reasoning because I don't view Halloween 78 and Halloween 81, so Halloween 2 from 1981, as two separate films. I view them, if you have the opportunity, if you have both, if you have a copy of both, whether that's physical or digital, however you have them, or if you rent them, watch them back to back. Watch Halloween from 1978, and immediately as before the credits start to roll, as the music starts to play, immediately switch over to Halloween 2 1981, and for me, it's one continuous story. You see from the point when Michael in 1978, he's getting Dr. Loomis is using his weapon towards Michael Myers. Michael Myers falls over the banister, falls on the ground, and Dr. Loomis runs out there, and the body is gone. And then we kind of go through some scenes, jumps from scene to scene for it's the house, Jamie Lee Curtis, and then the film ends. Now, where part two picks up is we start back inside the house where Jamie Lee Curtis or Laurie's talking to the two kids. Dr. Loomis comes in, uses his weapon. Michael falls over the banister, falls on the ground. Dr. Loomis speaks to Laurie briefly and runs outside and discovers Michael's missing. And then one of the neighbors now comes up and is like, what's going on? What's all the, pretty much what's all the ruckus about? And Dr. Loomis tells them to call the police. And then there's a few more lines that are exchanged. And then the beginning credits start to roll. And then we immediately go right into then Michael Myers, like from his perspective, as he's trying to, I don't want to say escape, but he's managed to escape, as far as where he landed. But he's ultimately now trying to figure out, okay, got to get back to figure out how I can get to Laurie. And then Laurie is ended up taken to the hospital, and that's where the bulk of the movie then plays out, is at Haddonfield Hospital, where Michael ends up. So again, it's all happening within the same night. So that's why I feel these are properly placed on the list, number 1 and 2. But again, I think they should be watched back to back. And they will always be my favorites for the Halloween franchise. So yeah, and again, that's where it rounds out for number 1. I'll place the link in the description if you want to kind of read through these little short summaries for each film. But again, that's how I would place them. But I mean, to each his own. Everyone's going to have their likes and dislikes with any franchise. But when it comes to Halloween, that's how I'd rank them. So just real quick before we wrap it up for tonight, again, I know everyone's going to probably has some plans tonight for Halloween. So just real quickly, it's Nightcrawler, not necessarily a horror film, but it's one of those psychological thrillers which we do cover here on the channel. Turned 10 years old. If you haven't seen Nightcrawler with Jake Gyllenhaal, I know some people haven't seen it, and that's a little surprising, because it is a great film. He played this role. It was just an amazing role that he played in this film, and it's hard to believe this is already 10 years old, that it came out in 2014 in theaters. But if you haven't seen this film, again, I'm a little surprised, especially if you're a fan of the genre. But if you haven't, check it out. Highly recommend it. I can't imagine you'll be disappointed. So yeah. And then the last little thing I saw today, obviously in the spirit of Halloween, as I mentioned, maybe this was the crossover that we always needed back in the 90s, throughout the 90s, maybe early 2000s, that we never got, which was a Scream Friends crossover. So here we have Rachel, Monica and Phoebe. Phoebe's on the phone, and then in the background we have Ghostface, with a cell phone, obviously under the assumption that he's talking to Phoebe. But maybe this was and it's just the rest of the picture here, but maybe this was the crossover we always needed in the 90s. I know some TV shows, especially Friends, used to do around that time of year, whether it was Thanksgiving, Christmas, Halloween. Actually, they did have a few Halloween episodes. I think that would have been potentially smart to somehow do something like this. Never happened. I don't think I've ever seen a TV show where that's happened, where they tried to play on a a horror film franchise and kind of tie that into a TV show episode. But again, missed opportunity. So anyway, so that is going to wrap it up for tonight's episode. Again, thank you for watching. Thank you for joining me tonight on Halloween. I hope, again, everyone has a great night tonight. If you happen to be going out, if you're not, you're staying in and you're going out with Halloween plans tomorrow or Saturday. Be safe. Yeah, just be safe out there. Obviously, you can't control what other people do, but you can control what you do. And yeah, just be safe. So if you haven't already, please like, share, and subscribe. It definitely will help the channel. And if you haven't already, please check out our sister channel, Quiet on the Set, and give that channel a like, share, and subscribe as well. We try to do here and there daily uploads. And again, as I've mentioned in the past, we're going to try and get some live shows scheduled here in the next couple weeks. So we may cut back on trying to do maybe every other day do a daily drop, and then on those off days do just live shows. Just do maybe like a quick hour or so. But anyways, have a great evening, everyone. Again, be safe, and we'll see you at the next one. Peace.